The crystal flutes shatter against the marble floor, sending champagne and glass fragments scattering across Eleanor Chen's immaculate dining room. But it's not the broken crystal that silences the room. It's the words that just left my mother-in-law's mouth. Before we jump in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I've arranged for a DNA test, Eleanor announces, her voice cutting through the Christmas music still playing softly in the background. Sophie doesn't have a single Chen family trait. I think we all deserve to know the truth before she inherits anything from this family. My daughter, 8 months old and dressed in the red velvet holiday dress Eleanor herself had sent, stares wide-eyed from her high chair, oblivious to the bomb that's just been dropped on our Christmas dinner. My husband Daniel rises halfway, from his chair, his napkin sliding forgotten to the floor. "Mother, what are you talking about?" His voice sounds strange, strained in a way I've never heard before. But Eleanor isn't looking at him. Her eyes, cold and calculating, are fixed directly on me. The same eyes that had shown nothing but disapproval since the day Daniel brought me home 3 years ago. I think Olivia knows exactly what I'm talking about. 20 faces turn toward me in unison, forks suspended midway to mouths, the traditional Chen family Christmas dinner forgotten. Heat rushes to my cheeks as I feel the weight of their stares. Daniel's sister Victoria's barely concealed. Satisfaction, his cousin's shocked expressions, Judith Wilson's eagerly scandalized interest. I look at Sophie, at her soft black hair and deep brown eyes. My daughter, our daughter. And something inside me, something that's been bending and bending under Eleanor's tyranny for 3 years, finally snaps. I stand slowly, my chair scraping, against the hardwood. "You want a DNA test, Eleanor? Fine. Let's do it right now." My voice doesn't waver, though my hands shake as I reach for Sophie. But when it proves what I already know, don't expect to be a part of her life ever again. Daniel finally unfreezes, his face draining of color. "Olivia, you don't have to." "No," I cut him off. "I do. Your mother has been questioning my integrity since the day we met. Let's settle this once and for all." Eleanor's perfect composure slips just for a second. She hadn't expected me to call her bluff. But she recovers quickly, reaching into her handbag to produce a small white box. "I thought you might say that," she says, almost smiling. "That's why I came prepared." 3 hours earlier, I had been full of hope. Turning the Chen family's black SUV into Eleanor's long, snow-dusted driveway, I allowed myself to believe that this Christmas might be different. That after giving birth to Sophie, after nearly a year of sleepless nights and the absolute joy of motherhood, Eleanor might finally see me as part of the family. "She's going to love the photo album we made for her," I said, glancing at Daniel as he navigated the SUV through the falling snow. All those milestones she missed while she was in Hong Kong. Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just remember what we talked about, okay? Don't let her get to you. 3 days, then we're back home." I nodded, gently adjusting Sophie's hat as she slept in her car seat. 3 days at the Chen family estate for Christmas. I could handle that. The house loomed ahead, a sprawling colonial with every window glowing warm against the darkening sky. Eleanor had insisted on hosting Christmas dinner again this year, the first since Harold's passing. Daniel's father had been the buffer between us, the only one who seemed to genuinely welcome me into the family. Without him, I felt like I was entering enemy territory. "There's my beautiful granddaughter," Eleanor crooned as we entered, completely ignoring me as she reached for Sophie. My daughter, always sociable, went to her grandmother willingly. I handed over the diaper bag, watching as Eleanor carried Sophie off to show her to the gathering family members, leaving me standing in the foyer with our luggage. Victoria appeared in the hallway, martini in hand. "Oh, you're here," she said, her gaze sweeping over my carefully chosen outfit, a red sweater dress that had cost more than I'd care to admit. Mother's been planning this dinner for weeks. She's invited everyone. Her emphasis on everyone made me uneasy. Sounds festive, I replied, striving for pleasantness. Can I help with anything? Victoria's laugh was sharp. I think Mother has everything under control. As always. I found Daniel in the kitchen, already deep in conversation with his uncle about the Chen family foundation. When Harold died, he'd left Daniel in charge of the charitable organization, much to Eleanor's dismay. She'd expected to take control herself, to guide the foundation's considerable resources according to her vision. Olivia, Eleanor called from the dining room doorway, interrupting my thoughts. Sophie needs changing, and hurry back down. Natalie has just arrived and is asking about you. My stomach dropped. Natalie Pierce, Daniel's ex-girlfriend, the daughter of Eleanor's closest friend, and the woman Eleanor had always hoped Daniel would marry. The woman who was definitely not on the guest list Daniel had shown me. You invited Natalie? I whispered to Daniel when I returned downstairs. Sophie freshly changed and now happily playing with one of her cousins. Daniel's expression darkened. Of course not. Mother must have. He trailed off, spotting Natalie across the room. She was stunning in an emerald green dress, her blonde hair swept up elegantly, laughing at something Eleanor was saying. I'll handle this, he promised, squeezing my hand before crossing the room. But as the evening progressed, it became clear that Eleanor had more planned than a simple awkward reunion. The seating arrangement placed Natalie between Daniel and his cousin, while I was relegated to the far end of the table near Victoria and Judith. Sophie's high chair was positioned next to Eleanor, out of my reach. Dinner began with Eleanor's traditional toast to family and legacy. To the Chen name, she said, raising her crystal flute, and to those who uphold its honor. Her eyes lingered meaningfully on me. The first course had just been served when Eleanor began her performance. Sophie has grown so much since I last saw her, she remarked, loud enough for the entire table to hear. Though I can't see much of Daniel in her features. An uncomfortable silence fell. Daniel cleared his throat. She has Olivia's eyes, that's for sure. Yes, Eleanor continued. All Olivia, isn't she? Not a single Chen characteristic. She turned to Natalie. You remember my son at that age, don't you, dear? The Chen family dimple, the distinct eyebrow shape. Natalie had the grace to look uncomfortable. It was a long time ago, Mrs. Chen. Genetics are funny things, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Sometimes traits skip a generation. Or a bloodline entirely, Eleanor murmured, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. Daniel set down his fork with a clatter. Mother, that's enough. But Eleanor was just warming up. Throughout the main course, she made pointed comments about family resemblance, the importance of the Chen legacy, and how blood would always tell. With each remark, the knot in my stomach tightened. During dessert, Eleanor produced a photo album, not the one we had brought her, but an old one filled with pictures of Daniel as a baby. Look at these Chen family traits, she said, passing the album around. The distinctive chin, the set of the eyes, all the way back to Daniel's great-grandfather. All the Chen children have them. She looked pointedly at Sophie, happily smashing cranberry sauce into her high-chair tray. All except one, it seems. And that's when she dropped her bombshell about the DNA test, sending my champagne flute crashing to the floor. The silence following Eleanor's announcement is broken by Daniel, who stands so abruptly his chair nearly topples. This dinner is over, he says, his voice tight with fury. Olivia, get Sophie. We're leaving. But Eleanor remains unruffled. If you leave now, you forfeit your position at the foundation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The board members are all here as witnesses. She gestures around the table. They deserve to know if Sophie is truly a Chen, entitled to the legacy Harold intended. I look around the table at the shocked faces of Daniel's family and the foundation, board members. This isn't just about family drama. It's about control of the Chen family foundation, the millions of dollars in charitable giving, and the power that comes with it. Eleanor has been plotting this ambush meticulously. "You can't be serious," Daniel says, but his voice carries a note of uncertainty that sends a chill through me. "The foundation bylaws are quite clear," Eleanor continues smoothly. "The heir must be a blood relative. If Sophie isn't yours, the control reverts to me, as Harold's widow." My mind races. So that's what this is about. Eleanor has never forgiven Harold for leaving the foundation to Daniel instead of her. She's been looking for a way to seize control since the reading of the will. "This is ridiculous," I say, rising to stand beside Daniel. "And frankly, cruel. To use a child, your granddaughter, as a pawn in whatever game you're playing." "It's a simple test," Eleanor interrupts. "One that will put all doubts to rest, unless, of course, you have something to hide." Daniel looks at me, and for a fraction of a second, I see it. A flicker of doubt in his eyes. It's gone instantly, replaced by anger directed at his mother, but that momentary hesitation cuts deeper than anything Eleanor could say. "Give me the test," I say, my voice steadier than I feel. "Now, in front of everyone. And when it proves you wrong, I want a public apology." Eleanor's smile is thin and satisfied. "Of course, dear." What follows is surreal. In Eleanor's opulent living room with the Christmas tree twinkling in the corner, I swab the inside of Sophie's cheek, then my own. Daniel does the same, his movements mechanical. Eleanor explains that her friend is a lab technician who will process the results immediately. "He's waiting at his lab," she says. "Judith will drive the samples over and bring back the results." "That's convenient," I mutter, "but hand over the sealed samples anyway." As Judith departs with our DNA, bearing them away through the now heavily falling snow, the remaining guests break into uncomfortable clusters of whispered conversation. Natalie approaches me as I cradle Sophie protectively. "I didn't know she was planning this," she says quietly. "I would never have come if I'd known." I want to believe her, but trust feels like a luxury I can't afford right now. "Why are you here, Natalie?" She hesitates. "Eleanor called last week. She said Daniel was having doubts about his marriage, that he'd reached out to me." She looks genuinely distressed. "I should have known better, but we were together for so long, and I thought maybe—" The pieces click into place with sickening clarity. Eleanor hasn't just been planning to question Sophie's paternity, she's been laying groundwork to break up our marriage entirely. I spot Rachel, my closest friend, standing awkwardly by the fireplace. I hadn't even known Eleanor had invited her. I make my way toward her, Sophie on my hip. "What are you doing here?" I whisper. Rachel looks miserable. "Eleanor called yesterday. Said you needed moral support for a family situation." I had no idea. She squeezes my hand. "I'm so sorry, Liv." "I need you to do something for me," I say, making a quick decision. "Take Sophie to your place. If this goes sideways—" "It won't," Rachel interrupts firmly. "Daniel knows Sophie is his. Everyone with eyes knows it." But I can see Daniel across the room, cornered by two board members, his posture defensive. And for the first time since I met him, I don't know what he's thinking. "Just in case," I insist, handing Rachel my car keys. "The snow's getting worse. Leave now before the roads are impassable." After a moment's hesitation, Rachel nods. "Call me the second this is over, no matter what. Promise me." I help her bundle Sophie into her snowsuit and watch them slip out the side door, unnoticed in the chaos Eleanor has created. With my daughter safely away from this toxic environment, I can finally think clearly. My phone buzzes with a text from my cousin Jason. "Where are you? What's happening?" Jason, the only family I have left since my parents died, lives just 30 minutes away. I quickly type, "Eleanor Chen's house, family crisis, need your help." Then I add the address. His response is immediate. "On my way." Crossing the room to where Daniel stands, I place my hand on his arm. "Can we talk? Privately?" He follows me into Harold's old study, closing the door behind us. As soon as we're alone, his carefully maintained composure crumbles. "Olivia, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she would do something like this." His voice breaks. "I never doubted you, not for a second. You have to believe that." I want to believe him, but that flicker of uncertainty I'd seen. "Then why did you look at me that way when she announced the test?" Daniel runs his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration I know well. "It wasn't doubt about you. It was. I was realizing how far she's willing to go. Using Sophie as a weapon against us, against me." He looks up, his eyes pained. "The foundation was my father's life work. He trusted me to carry it on. If she takes that away." "Is that all you're worried about? The foundation?" The question comes out sharper than I intended. "No. God, no." He takes my hands. "But you have to understand, if she gets control, she'll dismantle everything my father built. All the programs for underprivileged kids, the scholarship funds. She'll redirect it all to her society friends' pet projects, status symbols instead of actual help." I pull my hands away. "And what about us? What about our family?" Before he can answer, there's a commotion in the hallway. Through the study window, I see headlights cutting through the snow, Judith returning with the test results. "This ends now," Daniel says, squaring his shoulders. "Whatever those results say, though we both know what they'll say, I'm cutting ties with her. She's gone too far." But as we return to the living room, where everyone has reassembled in tense anticipation, I notice something odd. Eleanor looks too confident, exchanging knowing glances with Victoria. And Judith, snow still melting on her designer coat, can't quite meet my eyes as she hands the sealed envelope to Eleanor. "Shall I do the honors?" Eleanor asks, her voice dripping with false concern. "No," Daniel says firmly, stepping forward. "The results come to us, not you." For a moment, it seems Eleanor might refuse, but then she hands over the envelope with a small, satisfied smile that sends warning bells ringing in my head. Daniel opens it, his face unreadable as he scans. The contents. Then slowly, he passes the paper to me. I brace myself, confident in what I'll see, but the words on the page make my blood run cold. Probability of paternity. 0.00%. The room spins around me. This is impossible. Sophie is Daniel's daughter. There has never been anyone else. "I think we have our answer," Eleanor says into the shocked silence. "I'll be calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning to discuss the transition of leadership, as per the bylaws." Daniel stares at the paper in my hand. "This isn't right," he says, but his voice lacks conviction. "The seed of doubt has been planted, and in front of all these witnesses, it's beginning to take root." Victoria steps forward, placing a consoling hand on her brother's arm. "I'm so sorry, Danny. We all suspected, but none of us wanted to believe she would go this far." "Suspected what?" I demand, finding my voice at last. "That I somehow, what? Had an affair and miraculously produced a child that looks exactly like my husband?" "The test speaks for itself," Eleanor says coldly. "And now I think it's time for you to leave my home." Daniel stands frozen, torn, between the supposed evidence in his hands and what he knows in his heart. And in that moment of hesitation, I make my decision. "You're right," I say, gathering my coat. We should leave. All of us. I look directly at Eleanor. But this isn't over, not by a long shot. As I turn to go, the front door bursts open, bringing with it a swirl of snowflakes and my cousin Jason, red-faced from the cold and the urgency of his drive. "Liv!" he calls, scanning the room until he spots me. "Got your text? What's going on?" Eleanor looks annoyed at the interruption. "And who might you be?" Jason ignores her, crossing straight to me. "What happened? You look like someone died." I hand him the test results. As he reads, his expression changes from concern to disbelief to something harder, more determined. "This is bullshit," he says flatly. "Complete bullshit." "Watch your language in my home," Eleanor snaps. Jason turns to face her, and I see the recognition dawn on her face. Recognition she's trying desperately to hide. "You don't remember me, do you, Mrs. Chen?" Jason says, his voice dangerously calm. "But I remember you. I worked in the administrative office at Portland General last summer. I processed the paperwork when you came in for your collagen treatment." Eleanor stiffens. "I don't see what that has to do with—" "I also know Judith's husband. He manages the lab where you supposedly sent these samples." Jason holds up the paper. "And I know for a fact he's in Hawaii until after New Year's." A murmur runs through the room. Daniel steps forward, taking the results from Jason's hand. "What are you saying?" Jason doesn't break eye contact with Eleanor. "I'm saying your mother faked the test. I'm saying this paper isn't worth the ink it's printed on." The room erupts into chaos. Board members demanding explanations, family members choosing sides. Through it all, Eleanor stands rigid, her perfect composure finally cracking as her carefully orchestrated plan begins to unravel. But it's not over yet, not even close. Because when the real test results come back, they'll reveal a truth far more shocking than anything Eleanor could have fabricated. A truth that will change the Chen family forever. And as I stand there in the midst of the chaos, watching my mother-in-law's world beginning to crumble, I realize this is just the beginning. The storm outside is nothing compared to the one brewing within these walls. Jason's apartment feels like a sanctuary after the nightmare at Eleanor's estate. The space is modest but warm, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in framed concert posters, a stark contrast to the cold perfection of the Chen family home. I sink into his worn leather couch, exhaustion finally catching up with me, as the adrenaline fades. She actually had fake test results prepared, I say for perhaps the third time, still unable to fully process the depth of Eleanor's betrayal. Who does that? Jason hands me a steaming mug of tea, the scent of chamomile wafting up. Someone desperate. Someone who didn't expect to get caught. He sits across from me, notebook already in hand. My cousin, the investigative journalist, always ready to unravel a mystery. Rachel emerges from the spare bedroom, closing the door quietly behind her. "Sophie's finally asleep," she says, joining us. Poor thing was overtired from all the excitement. "Did Daniel call again?" I ask, glancing at my phone. 3 missed calls from my husband, all sent to voicemail. Rachel nods. "Twice, I told him you're safe and that you'll talk when you're ready." She hesitates. "He sounds genuinely worried, Liv." "He should be," Jason mutters, tapping his pen against his notebook. His mother just tried to erase his child from existence. I curl my fingers around the warm mug, trying to ground myself. I still don't understand. Why go this far? The foundation is successful with Daniel at the helm. Harold trusted him with it. But Eleanor didn't, Rachel points out. From what? You've told us. She's never accepted being sidelined. Jason scribbles something in his notebook. It's more than that. The Chen Family Foundation controls millions in assets. Whoever runs it has influence in every major institution in Portland. Power, I say, the realization settling like a stone. It's about power. And control. Rachel adds. She was losing her grip on Daniel once Sophie came along. Your little family became his priority, not her. My phone buzzes again. Daniel. After a moment's hesitation, I answer, putting it on speaker. Olivia, thank God. His voice comes through, tight with tension. Are you and Sophie okay? Where are you? We're safe, I say, not volunteering our location. That's all you need to know right now. There's a pause, then. I kicked her out. Mother, told her to go to Victoria's until we sort this out. His voice drops lower. I never imagined she'd go this far, Liv. You have to believe me. I exchange glances with Jason and Rachel, their expressions mirroring my uncertainty. I don't know what to believe anymore, Daniel. The tests were fake, he says firmly. We all know that now. But I've arranged for legitimate testing tomorrow. The lab director is a friend from college, completely trustworthy. I bristle at the suggestion. So you still think we need a test? After everything that happened tonight? No! God, no! Daniel sounds frustrated. It's not for me. It's for the board. Mother's been spreading rumors for weeks, apparently. She's created enough doubt that they're demanding verification before the emergency meeting she's called. Emergency meeting? Jason interjects. Tomorrow afternoon, Daniel confirms. She's trying to invoke the heritage clause in the foundation bylaws. If she can convince the board Sophie isn't mine. She gets control, I finish, the full picture becoming clearer. She's been planning this for months, hasn't she? Daniel's sigh crackles through the speaker. I think longer. Dad changed his will 8 months ago, right after we told everyone you were pregnant. Before that, Mother was supposed to take over the foundation. The timing clicks into place. Eleanor's increasing hostility, the subtle comments about Sophie's appearance, the surprise invitation to Natalie. Not random cruelty, but calculated steps in a longer game. When did we lose her, Daniel? I ask quietly. When did your mother become someone capable of this? The silence stretches before he answers. I don't think we lost her. I don't think we ever had her. Another pause. Will you come home, please? We need to face this together. I look at Jason and Rachel, both giving me subtle nods of encouragement. Not tonight, I decide. Sophie's finally asleep, and I need time to think, but I'll meet you at the lab tomorrow morning. After we hang up, Jason immediately resumes his interrogation. When exactly did things start changing with Eleanor? Think back carefully. I close my eyes, trying to pinpoint when my relationship with my mother-in-law began its terminal decline. 4 months after the wedding, I say finally. We'd been talking about starting a family, and she suddenly became obsessed with the Chen family bloodline, started showing me old family photos, talking about genetic traits, how the Chen jaw and eyes had persisted for generations. Rachel snorts. Subtle. Then when I got pregnant, I continue, the memories flooding back. She insisted on coming to doctor's appointments, asking about genetic testing, offering to pay for additional screenings. Collecting ammunition, Jason murmurs, writing, rapidly. But here's what doesn't make sense, Rachel says, leaning forward. Why wait until Sophie was born to make her move? Why not question paternity during the pregnancy? Jason taps his pen thoughtfully. Because she needed witnesses. The board members, family, friends, all present to see the drama unfold. A public spectacle designed to humiliate Olivia and sow maximum doubt about Sophie. She needed an audience. I agree, the realization making my stomach turn. And what better audience than the entire extended family and the foundation board, all gathered for Christmas dinner? Rachel's expression darkens. There's something else we're missing. Jason, you mentioned you knew Judith's husband, the lab director? Mark Wilson. He's been in Hawaii since last week, some medical conference. There's no way he processed any tests today. So who created the fake results? I ask. Jason's phone buzzes. He glances at it, his expression shifting to one of grim satisfaction. I think we're about to find out. My friend at Portland General just got back to me about Eleanor's recent visits. He shows us the screen, a text message with an attached file. What am I looking at? I ask, squinting at the medical record. Eleanor Chen's appointment schedule for the past 6 months, Jason says. Look who she's been seeing regularly. I scan the list, one name jumping out, Dr. Andrew Fielding, Genetics Department. A geneticist? Rachel asks, reading over my shoulder. Not just any geneticist, Jason says grimly. He's been trying to get research funding from the Chen Foundation for years. Daniel's always turned him down. Ethical concerns about his work. The pieces start falling into place. So Eleanor promised him funding if he helped her fake the test results. Exactly, Jason confirms. And my friend says Eleanor had multiple appointments listed as sample collection. What samples would she need unless... The realization hits me like a physical blow. She was collecting Sophie's DNA. All those times she insisted on watching her, taking her for the day. She was building her case, Rachel finishes, horror dawning on her face. My phone rings again, an unknown number. I answer cautiously. Olivia, it's Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel, Sophie's pediatrician, a kind woman who's cared for my daughter since birth. I hope I'm not calling too late, she continues, sounding troubled. But after what Daniel told me, I thought you should know right away. My pulse quickens. Know what? Eleanor Chen has been requesting copies of Sophie's medical records for months. She claimed Daniel had authorized it, had paperwork that appeared to have his signature. The doctor's voice drops lower. I should have verified directly with you. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I assure her, though my mind is racing. What exactly was she looking for? Blood type information primarily, and she was particularly interested in the genetic screening results from when Sophie was born. After I hang up, we sit in stunned silence, the full scale of Eleanor's deception becoming clear. She's been building this case since before Sophie was born, I whisper, the betrayal cutting deeper with each revelation. All those offers to help, to babysit. She was gathering evidence, planning this moment. Jason stands abruptly, pacing the small living room. We need to expose her. All of it. The fake tests, the unauthorized medical record requests, the collusion with Dr. Fielding. Will it be enough? Rachel asks practically. The board meeting is tomorrow. If they've already been poisoned against Olivia and Sophie, then we need more, I decide, a new resolve hardening within me. The real test results, for starters, and... I hesitate, an idea forming. We need to find out what else Eleanor's been hiding. What do you mean? Jason asks. I pull out my phone, scrolling to a contact I haven't used in months. Harold? Chen wasn't just my father-in-law. He was my friend. And before he died, he told me something I've never shared with anyone, not even Daniel. Rachel leans forward. What? He said that if Eleanor ever tried to challenge Daniel's position at the foundation, I should look in his study. Third panel behind the desk, hidden compartment. I press dial, and I know just the person who can help us access it. The phone rings twice before a familiar voice answers. Mrs. Chen? Is everything all right? Wei, I breathe, relieved to hear the Chen family's longtime caretaker. I need your help. It's about Mr. Chen's study. An hour later, Wei sends a photo of what he found. A sealed envelope with my name written in Harold's distinctive handwriting. Inside, a letter and a small flash drive. He knew, I whisper, reading Harold's words. He knew what Eleanor might do. The letter is detailed, methodical, just like Harold himself. It outlines years of Eleanor's secret maneuvering, attempts to redirect foundation funds to her personal projects, and most damning of all, evidence that she'd been in contact with Marcus Grant, CEO of a pharmaceutical company with questionable ethics, the same company that had been trying to partner with the foundation over Daniel's objections. This is why Harold changed his will, I realize. The truth finally clear. He discovered Eleanor was planning to use the foundation to benefit Grant Pharmaceuticals in exchange for something. Jason connects his laptop to the TV screen, inserting the flash drive. Folders appear, neatly labeled with dates stretching back years. Personal correspondence, Rachel reads over my shoulder as we scan the files. Financial records. Wait, what's this? She points to a folder labeled simply Contingency. Inside, we find a video file, a recording Harold made 3 weeks before his death. We watch in silence as his face appears on screen, thinner than I remember, but with the same kind eyes that had welcomed me into the family when Eleanor wouldn't. Olivia? He begins, his voice slightly raspy. If you're watching this, then my suspicions about Eleanor have proven correct. I've observed her behavior changing since you and Daniel announced your pregnancy. What should have been joyous news seems to have triggered something dangerous in her. He coughs, taking a moment to compose himself. I've uncovered disturbing information. Eleanor has been meeting with Marcus Grant. They've struck some kind of arrangement involving the Foundation's research grants program, specifically funding for experimental genetic therapies that I've repeatedly blocked on ethical grounds. The video continues, Harold methodically outlining the evidence he's gathered. Financial trails, recorded conversations, emails obtained through his position as CEO. But there's something else, he says, his expression grave. Something I haven't told Daniel because I can't bear for him to know unless absolutely necessary. It concerns Eleanor's past before we were married. I lean forward, heart pounding as Harold reveals a secret buried for decades. Eleanor's first marriage, briefly, to Marcus Grant himself, a relationship she had concealed from everyone, including her own son. The marriage was annulled, Harold explains. But they've maintained a connection all these years, hidden from everyone. I believe they've been conspiring to use the foundation for Grant's benefit, something I've always prevented. With me gone, Eleanor will try to regain control, and Sophie's birth provides her the perfect opportunity. As the video concludes, Harold looks directly into the camera, his eyes fierce despite his failing health. The foundation is Daniel's birthright, and now Sophie's. Don't let Eleanor steal it from them. Everything you need is on this drive. Use it only if you must. When the screen goes dark, we sit in stunned silence. She's been working with Grant all along, Jason finally says, breaking the spell, using the family Christmas dinner to make her move. Rachel shakes her head in disbelief. But why fake the DNA test? Why not just challenge Daniel's leadership directly? Because of the heritage clause, I explain, the pieces falling into place. The foundation bylaws state that leadership must remain within the bloodline. If Sophie isn't Daniel's, and Eleanor can prove Daniel hid that fact, she has grounds to remove him immediately. And then she would have control, Jason concludes, free to direct foundation funds toward Grant's research. My phone buzzes with a text from Daniel. Mother's called an emergency board vote for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Need to talk before then. Please, I show the others. We have until 2 p.m. to expose Eleanor and stop the vote. We need a plan, Rachel says practically. The real DNA test results won't be ready in time. Jason taps the flash drive thoughtfully. We don't need them. We have something better. Proof of conspiracy. If we show the board what's on this drive. Eleanor loses everything, I finish, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Despite everything, she's still Sophie's grandmother, still Daniel's mother. There's one thing I don't understand, Rachel says slowly. If Eleanor and Grant were once married, why go to all this trouble? What does he have that's worth destroying her own family? I think about the Foundation's vast resources, its influence in medical research funding throughout the Pacific Northwest. Money, maybe. Power, definitely. But there's something else, Jason agrees, already typing rapidly on his laptop. Let me see what I can find on Grant Pharmaceuticals' current research. While he works, I text Daniel. We need to meet, early tomorrow. There's something you need to see before the board meeting. His reply is immediate. Name the place and time. I'll be there. Got it, Jason announces triumphantly. Grant Pharmaceuticals' most recent patent filing. They're developing a genetic therapy called Project Revival. The FDA has rejected it twice on ethical grounds, but with sufficient private funding for additional trials. They could bypass the normal approval channels, Rachel concludes, if the Chen Foundation backed the research. Exactly. Jason shows us the screen, displaying Grant's sleek corporate website. And look who's listed as their chief genetic researcher. The name hits me like a physical blow. Dr. Andrew Fielding, the same geneticist Eleanor has been meeting secretly. As I process this information, another text comes through from Daniel. Mother's acting strange. Locked herself in father's study. What should I be looking for? An alarm bell rings in my mind. The study, the evidence, if she finds the hiding place. I call Daniel immediately, heart pounding. Get to the study now. Don't let her take anything. What's going on, Liv? His voice is tense. Your father left evidence about Eleanor and Marcus Grant. She might be trying to destroy it. There's a pause, then the sound of rapid footsteps. I'm on my way. But how did you know about? I'll explain everything tomorrow. Just make sure she doesn't remove anything from the study. After I hang up, I turn to Jason and Rachel. We need copies of everything on this drive, multiple backups. Already on it, Jason assures me, fingers flying over his keyboard. My phone rings again. Daniel. She's gone, he says, his voice hollow. By the time I got to the study, she'd already left. The panel behind the desk was open, the hidden compartment empty. My heart sinks. She found the original evidence. What evidence, Liv? What's going on? I take a deep breath. Your mother has been working with Marcus Grant. They were married briefly before she met your father. They've been conspiring to gain control of the foundation to fund Grant's research, something your father discovered before he died. Silence stretches across the line. Then, married? To Grant? That's impossible. She would have told me. There's more, I continue gently. She's been collecting Sophie's DNA for months, working with a geneticist named Andrew Fielding to create fake test results. Another pause, longer this time. When Daniel speaks again, his voice has changed, hardened somehow. I've spent my entire life believing my mother was someone she's not. That ends now. He takes an audible breath. I'm going to Victoria's. She must know where Mother's gone. Be careful, I caution. Victoria might be involved. Trust me, Daniel says grimly. I'm not trusting anyone in my family right now, except you and Sophie. After we hang up, I check on Sophie, sleeping peacefully in Jason's spare room, unaware of the storm swirling around her tiny existence. Looking at her perfect features, so clearly a blend of Daniel and me, despite Eleanor's claims, I feel a fierce protectiveness surge through me. We have copies of everything, Jason announces, holding up several flash drives. Even if Eleanor destroyed the original, we have Harold's evidence. And we have something else, Rachel adds, looking up from her phone. My sister works at Grant Pharmaceuticals in HR. She just sent me some interesting information about Project Revival. She shows us her screen, an internal memo marked Confidential Genetic Compatibility Analysis. I don't understand the, scientific terminology, Rachel admits, but look at this part. She points to a highlighted section. Initial testing suggests optimal results require genetic markers from founder lineage. All available G1 samples degraded, G2 sample acquisition priority alpha. G1, G2. I read slowly. Generation 1, Generation 2? Jason's expression darkens as he reads further. This is about genetic compatibility for their treatment. They need donor material from specific genetic lines. G1 would be the first generation, Marcus Grant himself. And G2 would be his children, I finish, a chill running through me. But Grant doesn't have any children. Unless... The realization hits all three of us simultaneously. Eleanor. And Grant's marriage wasn't childless, Rachel whispers. They had a baby. A baby who grew up to become... Jason can't even finish the sentence. I complete the thought, the truth finally clear. Daniel. My husband is Marcus Grant's son. The pieces fall into place with sickening clarity. Eleanor's obsession with bloodlines, her determination to control the foundation, her secret meetings with Grant and Dr. Fielding. They need Daniel's genetic material for their research, I say, the horror of it washing over me. That's what this has all been about. Not just Daniel's, Jason points out grimly. Look at the rest of the memo. They're talking about G3 optimization potential. Third generation, Rachel translates. Sophie. The room spins around me as I grasp the full scope of Eleanor's betrayal, not just attempting to discredit Sophie's paternity, but actively working to gain access to her genetic material, to her very DNA, for Grant's experimental treatment. We need to warn Daniel, I say, reaching for my phone, right now. But before I can dial, a news alert flashes across Jason's laptop screen. Breaking: explosion at Victoria Chen's residence. Multiple injuries reported. The headline is accompanied by footage of a familiar house engulfed in flames, emergency vehicles surrounding the property as firefighters battle the blaze. Oh God, I whisper, frantically dialing Daniel's number. It rings once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. The board meeting, Rachel says suddenly. If he can't make it. Eleanor takes control by default. Jason finishes, already grabbing his coat. We need to get to the foundation offices, now. As we rush to gather Sophie and our evidence, my phone finally buzzes with a text. Not from Daniel, but from an unknown number. I have what you're looking for, and perhaps you have what I need. Shall we negotiate? MG. Marcus Grant has entered the game directly. And, with Daniel unreachable and the board meeting hours away, I realize with cold clarity that I'm now the only person standing between my daughter and those who would use her for their own purposes. Game on, I whisper, gathering Sophie into my arms as we head out into the snow-covered night. The Portland Memorial Hospital emergency waiting room buzzes with quiet anxiety, the antiseptic smell doing nothing to calm my racing heart. Sophie sleeps against my chest, blissfully unaware of the chaos surrounding her tiny existence. Jason paces near the vending machines, phone pressed to his ear as he calls every contact he has in local news, trying to get information about the explosion at Victoria's house. Rachel returns with 3 paper cups of what passes for coffee in this place, her face drawn with worry. Anything? I shake my head, glancing again at the emergency room doors. They still won't tell me anything. Since I'm not immediate family. Oh! The irony isn't lost on me. After everything Eleanor has done to erase my connection to the Chen family, hospital policy is now enforcing that very divide. My phone buzzes with another text from the unknown number. Marcus Grant. Time is running short. Shall we meet? The Parker Hotel, Suite 1242, 1 hour. Rachel reads over my shoulder, her expression hardening. You can't seriously be considering meeting him. I don't have a choice. I adjust Sophie in my arms, her warm weight the only thing keeping me grounded. Daniel is somewhere in this hospital, possibly injured. The board meeting is in 5 hours. Grant has answers we need. It's obviously a trap, Jason says, rejoining us. My sources confirm the explosion wasn't an accident. Police are treating it as potential arson. A cold dread settles in my stomach. Eleanor? Jason's grim expression is answer enough. 3 people were brought here from the scene with injuries. 1 male, 2 females. That's all they'll confirm. I stand. Decision made. You 2 stay here. Try to get information on Daniel. I'm going to meet Grant. Absolutely not, Rachel protests, already reaching for Sophie. At least leave the baby with us. For a moment, I hesitate. Maternal. Instinct warring with strategy. Then I shake my head. Sophie stays with me. She's what they want. What they've always wanted. And that makes her my strongest bargaining chip. Jason steps closer, lowering his voice. Liv, think about what you're saying. You're talking about using your daughter as bait. No, I correct. Him, steel entering my voice. I'm talking about showing Grant exactly what he can't have, what he'll never have. I check my bag, making sure Harold's flash drive is secure. But I need you to do something for me while I'm gone. 20 minutes later, a taxi drops me at the Parker Hotel, an elegant high-rise in downtown Portland. Snow continues to fall, blanketing the city in white silence that feels at odds with the turmoil of the past 12 hours. The doorman eyes me curiously as I enter with Sophie, but says nothing as I make my way to the elevators. Suite 1242 is at the end of a plushly carpeted hallway. I take a deep breath, adjusting Sophie in her carrier, and knock. The door opens to reveal an elegant man in his 70s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Marcus Grant's face is familiar from countless business magazines and pharmaceutical company promotional materials. His practiced smile not quite reaching his pale blue eyes that immediately fix on Sophie with unsettling intensity. Mrs. Chen, he says smoothly, stepping aside to let me enter. Thank you for coming. And you brought the little one. How thoughtful. The suite is opulent, all sleek furnishings and panoramic views of snow-covered Portland. Standing by the window is a figure that makes my blood run cold. Eleanor Chen, looking remarkably composed for someone whose house exploded just hours ago. Where's Daniel? I demand, remaining near the door, one hand protectively on Sophie's. Carrier. Straight to business, Grant remarks, closing the door with a soft click that sounds disturbingly final. I've always appreciated that quality. Your husband is alive, if that's your concern. No thanks to you, I snap, looking directly at Eleanor. Staging an explosion? That's a new low even for you. Eleanor's perfect composure doesn't falter. I have no idea what you're talking about. I wasn't even at Victoria's house when the unfortunate gas leak occurred. Gas leak, I repeat flatly. Is that the story you're going with? Grant gestures to the sitting area. Please, sit. We have much to discuss and limited time. I remain standing. I prefer to keep this short. You have something I want, information, about Daniel's condition and location, and apparently, I have something you want. I glance down at Sophie, who chooses that moment to wake, blinking sleepily. Though I'm still not entirely clear on what that is, beyond her genetic material. A flicker of surprise crosses Grant's face before his mask of affability returns. You've done your homework. Harold's contingency plan, I presume. Among other things, I confirm, including the Project Revival files and your need for genetic material from your own bloodline, your son's bloodline, your granddaughter's bloodline. Grant and Eleanor exchange a glance that confirms everything. Daniel doesn't know the truth. He has no idea that the man he's spent his life believing was his father isn't biologically related to him at all. How long have you known? Eleanor asks, her voice tight. Long enough. I shift Sophie's carrier to my other hand. What I don't understand is why the elaborate charade. The fake DNA test claiming Sophie isn't Daniel's? She's what they want. What they've always wanted. And that makes her my strongest bargaining chip. Jason steps closer, lowering his voice. Liv, think about what you're saying. You're talking about using your daughter as bait. No, I correct. Him. Steel entering my voice. I'm talking about showing Grant exactly what he can't have. What he'll never have. I check my bag, making sure Harold's flash drive is secure. But I need you to do something for me while I'm gone. 20 minutes later, a taxi drops me at the Parker Hotel, an elegant high-rise in downtown Portland. Snow continues to fall, blanketing the city in white silence that feels at odds with the turmoil of the past 12 hours. The doorman eyes me curiously as I enter with Sophie but says nothing as I make my way to the elevators. Suite 1242 is at the end of a plushly carpeted hallway. I take a deep breath, adjusting Sophie in her carrier, and knock. The door opens to reveal an elegant man in his 70s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. Marcus Grant's face is familiar from countless business magazines and pharmaceutical company promotional materials. His practiced smile not quite reaching his pale blue eyes that immediately fix on Sophie with unsettling intensity. Mrs. Chen, he says smoothly, stepping aside to let me enter. Thank you for coming. And you brought the little one. How, thoughtful. The suite is opulent, all sleek furnishings and panoramic views of snow-covered Portland. Standing by the window is a figure that makes my blood run cold. Eleanor Chen, looking remarkably composed for someone whose house exploded just hours ago. Where's Daniel? I demand, remaining near the door, one hand protectively on Sophie's carrier. Straight to business, Grant remarks, closing the door with a soft click that sounds disturbingly final. I've always appreciated that quality. Your husband is alive, if that's your concern. No thanks to you, I snap, looking directly at Eleanor. Staging an explosion? That's a new low, even for you. Eleanor's perfect composure doesn't falter. I have no idea what you're talking about. I wasn't even at Victoria's house when the unfortunate gas leak occurred. Gas leak, I repeat flatly. Is that the story you're going with? Grant gestures to the sitting area. Please sit. We have much to discuss and limited time. I remain standing. I prefer to keep this short. You have something I want. Information about Daniel's condition and location. And apparently I have something you want. I glance down at Sophie, who chooses that moment to wake, blinking sleepily. Though I'm still not entirely clear on what that is, beyond her genetic material. A flicker of surprise crosses Grant's face before his mask of affability returns. You've done your homework. Harold's contingency plan, I presume. Among other things, I confirm, including the Project Revival files and your need for genetic material from your own bloodline, your son's bloodline, your granddaughter's bloodline. Grant and Eleanor exchange a glance that confirms everything. Daniel doesn't know the truth.
Yes. She be delighted to Kimi Matis head. Go her hold lean chap, you go yo, din no bowden, later asks the rap roboro voice, Teddy.
Understand is why the elaborate charade. The fake DNA test claiming Sophie isn't Daniel's. Why not just tell him the truth about his parentage? Grant moves to a sideboard and pours himself a drink, the picture of casual confidence. Daniel has been resistant to our research proposals. Ethical concerns, he claims, though his father's influence is clearly to blame for that. If he knew the truth, that the treatment we're developing could save countless lives, including potentially his own someday, he might be more cooperative. So instead, you decided to discredit my daughter's paternity, take control of the foundation. And what? Secretly harvest their DNA without consent? The magnitude of their plan is staggering in its callousness. You make it sound so sinister, Eleanor says dismissively. Project Revival will revolutionize genetic medicine, certain. Shortcuts in the approval process are necessary for the greater good. Shortcuts like faking DNA tests and setting houses on fire, I counter. Grant sighs heavily, setting down his drink. The explosion was unfortunate and unplanned. Victoria became problematic when she learned certain aspects of our arrangement. A chill runs through me. Is she alive? For now, Eleanor says coldly, though her recovery is uncertain. The casual way she speaks about her own daughter's life makes my skin crawl. I think of the Chen family Christmas dinner, the elaborate table settings, the picture-perfect family facade, all hiding this monstrous reality. And Daniel? Press! You said he's alive. He sustained minor injuries, Grant confirms. He's being treated at a private facility where he'll remain until after the board meeting this afternoon. In other words, they're holding him hostage to ensure the vote goes their way. I think quickly, calculating my next move. And what exactly do you want from me? Why arrange this meeting? Eleanor steps forward, her designer heels silent on the plush carpet. The board members respect you, surprisingly enough. Your presence at the meeting, supporting the transition of leadership back to me and Daniel's unfortunate absence, would smooth the process considerably. You want me to help you steal the foundation from my husband? I can't keep the incredulity from my voice. We want you to secure your daughter's future, Grant corrects smoothly. Eleanor would be named interim director only. Eventually, when Sophie comes of age, control would pass to her. Think of it as protecting her inheritance. I almost laugh at the audacity. While you use foundation resources to fund your unethical research and harvest my daughter's genetic material without oversight. How exactly does that secure her future? Project Revival isn't just any treatment, Grant says, his voice taking on an evangelical quality that makes my skin crawl. It's the culmination of my life's work, a therapy that can correct genetic anomalies that cause debilitating diseases. He steps closer, eyes intense. The Chen family line carries a rare genetic marker, my genetic marker, a mutation that causes early-onset cardiovascular degeneration. Eleanor's face betrays nothing, but her hand drifts unconsciously to her chest. Harold died of heart failure at 62, his father at 58, Marcus's father at 54. And you? I ask Grant directly. I've been using experimental treatments to manage my condition for years, he admits. But they're stopgaps at best. Project Revival could provide a permanent solution, not just for me, but for Daniel, for Sophie. Despite myself, a tendril of doubt creeps in. Are you saying Daniel has this condition? That Sophie might have it too? It's a dominant trait with variable expression, Grant explains. Daniel hasn't shown symptoms yet, but the genetic marker is there. We confirmed it from samples Eleanor obtained. In males, symptoms typically begin in the mid-40s. Harold's relatively long life was anomalous. The timeline hits me like a physical blow. Daniel is 38. If Grant is telling the truth, he could begin experiencing symptoms in just a few years. We're not monsters, Olivia, Eleanor says, sensing my wavering. We're trying to save our family. Your family. For a moment, just a moment, I can almost see the situation through their eyes. The desperation of a mother trying to save her son, a grandfather trying to protect his granddaughter. But then I remember the fake DNA test, the public humiliation, the explosion that injured Victoria. If this treatment is so revolutionary, why not pursue approval through proper channels? I challenge. Why the secrecy, the manipulation? Grant's expression hardens. FDA approval would take years. Years I don't have, years Daniel might not have. And the complete therapy requires genetic material from 3 generations of the same bloodline. Extremely rare, extremely valuable, and not something easily explained in standard clinical trial paperwork. Sophie begins to fuss in her carrier, the tension in the room disturbing her. As I soothe her, I notice Grant watching with that same unsettling intensity. You have samples from yourself and from Daniel, I say slowly. You want Sophie's DNA to complete the treatment protocol. Not just samples, Grant corrects. Ongoing access. The therapy requires fresh cellular material, regularly harvested over time. The full picture finally comes into focus. So your plan was to discredit me as a mother, take Sophie away through custody proceedings, and use her as your personal genetic pharmacy. The coldness of it is breathtaking. With Eleanor controlling the foundation to provide unlimited funding for your research. You make it sound so clinical, Eleanor says with a dismissive wave. Sophie would have wanted for nothing. The best schools, the best opportunities. Everything except freedom from being treated as a medical resource, I retort. Everything except her mother. Grant steps forward, all pretense of civility fading. Let me be clear, Mrs. Chen. You have 2 options. Cooperate with us, attend the board meeting this afternoon and support Eleanor's appointment, then agree to Sophie's participation in our research program, or face the consequences. Which are? His smile is thin. Daniel remains in our care. The evidence of your embezzlement from the foundation reaches the board and the authorities. And given the questions already surrounding Sophie's paternity, gaining custody would be quite straightforward. Embezzlement? I echo. There is no embezzlement. Eleanor produces a folder from her designer handbag. There is now documentation of funds transferred from foundation accounts to offshore holdings in your name. Backdated, of course, but quite convincing. Your signature is remarkably easy to forge. I think of Harold's warning about Eleanor's capacity for deception, of the careful contingency plans he'd put in place. He knew. He knew exactly what she was capable of. So that's the choice, I say, buying time as I consider my options. Cooperate and lose my daughter to your research program, or fight and lose her to false criminal charges. I prefer to think of it as choosing a better future for everyone, Grant says smoothly. The board meeting is at 2. You have until then to decide. He glances at his watch. That gives you just under 4 hours. I need to see Daniel, I insist, to know he's really alive and unharmed. Eleanor and Grant exchange glances. After a moment, Grant nods. That can be arranged. A video call, perhaps, as proof of life? We're not barbarians, after all. The casual way he uses the phrase, proof of life, as if this were a standard kidnapping negotiation, sends ice through my veins. What kind of people have I married into? As if reading my thoughts, Eleanor steps closer, her voice softening in that performative way I've come to recognize as her most dangerous tone. All we ever wanted was to protect the Chen legacy, Olivia. When Harold changed his will, leaving everything to Daniel instead of me, he forced my hand. Surely you can understand a mother's desire to secure her child's future. A mother's desire to secure her child's future, I repeat slowly, looking down at Sophie. Yes, Eleanor, I understand that perfectly. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from Jason. In position. Video link coming through in 30 seconds. Keep them talking. I take a deep breath, shifting strategies. Before I agree to anything, I want to understand exactly what Project Revival entails for Sophie. What kind of samples would you need? How often? What are the risks? Grant seems pleased by the question, launching into an explanation dense with medical terminology about stem cells, genetic markers, and extraction protocols. I let him talk, watching the seconds tick by on my phone, keeping Sophie close. Which is why the third-generation material is so crucial, Grant is saying when my phone buzzes again. The epigenetic modifications in the G3 samples provide stability that can't be synthesized artificially. And these samples, I interrupt, they would be taken how often? Monthly, initially, he replies. Then quarterly once the baseline, therapy is established. My phone lights up with an incoming video call from an unknown number. I hold it up. I need to see Daniel first, then we can discuss logistics. Grant nods to Eleanor, who produces her own phone. I'll connect you. He's being kept sedated for his own safety, so don't expect much conversation. While she busies herself with her phone, I accept the incoming call on mine, turning the screen so Grant and Eleanor can't see it clearly. Jason's face appears briefly, giving me a thumbs up before the camera shifts to show a hospital room where Daniel lies in a bed, eyes closed, an IV in his arm. My heart constricts at the sight of him, so vulnerable, so unaware of the truth about his origins that's about to explode into the open. Daniel, I say, my voice breaking despite my efforts to remain calm. Can you hear me? His eyes flutter, open, unfocused at first, then widening as he recognizes me. Liv? What's happening? Where am I? Sir, you need to remain calm, a voice says off camera, Jason, disguising his voice. Your injuries require rest. Eleanor frowns, stepping closer to peer at my screen. What is this? That's not our facility. In that moment of confusion, I press the button Jason and I had arranged, broadcasting our conversation to the emergency contact list we'd set up, including Dr. Patel, Rachel, and most importantly, the Foundation board members. Your facility? I repeat loudly and clearly. You mean where you're holding Daniel against his will after staging an explosion at Victoria's house? After falsifying DNA tests to steal control of the Chen family foundation? Grant lunges for my phone, but I'm faster, stepping back and continuing, my voice steady. And why are you doing this, Marcus Grant? Care to explain Project Revival to our audience? How you need Sophie's genetic material because she's your granddaughter? How you've been conspiring with Eleanor Chen for decades? Shut up, Eleanor, hisses, her composure finally cracking. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Exposing the truth, I say simply. Something Harold wanted to do before he died. Something Daniel deserves to know. On my phone screen, Daniel's confusion is giving way to understanding. Liv, what are you talking about? What do you mean Grant's granddaughter? Grant makes another grab for my phone, knocking Sophie's carrier in the process. Her startled cry freezes him momentarily, long enough for the hotel room door to burst open, revealing Jason, flanked by 2 police officers. Portland Police, one officer announces. Marcus Grant, Eleanor Chen, you're wanted for questioning regarding an explosion in the West Hills area and the illegal detention of Daniel Chen. What follows is controlled chaos. As Grant and Eleanor are separated for questioning, I rush to Daniel's side at Portland General, where Jason had found him being treated for smoke inhalation and minor burns from the explosion. I don't understand, Daniel says, his voice hoarse. My mother did this, and Grant is? He's my biological father? I sit beside his hospital bed, Sophie sleeping peacefully in my arms, and tell him everything. Harold's contingency plan, the evidence on the flash drive, Grant and Eleanor's scheme to use Project Revival to save him from a genetic condition he didn't know he had. All these years, he whispers, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. My whole identity, everything I thought I knew about myself. You're still you, I tell him firmly. You're still the man Harold Chen raised to be honest and compassionate. The man I fell in love with. Sophie's father. He reaches out to touch Sophie's tiny hand. The genetic condition Grant mentioned, Is it real? Does Sophie have it? Dr. Patel is arranging proper testing, I assure him. But even if the condition is real, we'll face it together. The right way, with ethical research and proper medical care. Daniel's expression hardens. The board meeting. It's in an hour. Mother will still try to take control, especially with me in here. Let her try, I say with newfound confidence. I've sent Harold's evidence to every board member. Jason is briefing them right now on everything we've learned. You should be there, Daniel insists. The Chen Family Foundation needs a Chen to represent it, especially now. I hesitate. I'm not a Chen by blood. Daniel takes my hand. His grip surprisingly strong despite his ordeal. Neither am I, apparently. But we're both Chens where it counts, in our commitment to Harold's vision for the foundation. He squeezes my fingers. Go, take Sophie. Show the board exactly who they're fighting for. The Chen Foundation headquarters occupies the top 3 floors of a sleek downtown high-rise. I've been here countless times for charity galas and holiday parties, but never like this. Never with Sophie in my arms and the future of the foundation hanging in the balance. The boardroom falls silent as I enter, all eyes turning to take in my appearance. I'm still wearing yesterday's clothes, rumpled from the night in Jason's apartment and the confrontation at the hotel. Sophie is awake and alert in her carrier, bright eyes taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Eleanor sits at the head of the table, exactly where she's always believed she belongs. She looks up at my entrance, her expression a controlled mask of concern. Olivia, she says smoothly. How kind of you to join us. I was just explaining Daniel's unfortunate absence and the need for temporary leadership during this difficult time. Daniel isn't absent, I reply, placing Sophie's carrier carefully on the table where everyone can see her. He's recovering from injuries sustained in an explosion at Victoria's home, an explosion the police are currently investigating as attempted murder. Murmurs ripple around the table. Eleanor's smile remains fixed, though something dangerous flashes in her eyes. Such dramatic accusations, she says with forced lightness. The gas leak was a tragic accident. Like the falsified DNA test results? I interrupt, removing Harold's flash drive from my bag and placing it beside Sophie. Or the secret meetings with Marcus Grant about Project Revival? Or perhaps like the fact that you've been conspiring to use Foundation resources to fund unethical genetic research using your own granddaughter as a test subject? The boardroom erupts into shocked questions. Eleanor rises, trying to regain control. These are preposterous allegations from a woman desperate to maintain her position. These are documented facts, I counter, as Jason enters with a laptop. Facts that Harold Chen discovered before his death and prepared contingencies for. Facts that the police are currently investigating in connection with the explosion that injured your daughter and almost killed your son. I gesture to Jason, who connects his laptop to the boardroom's presentation system. Harold's video testament appears on the large screen, his familiar face silencing the chaos as he begins to speak. Members of the board, Harold's recorded voice, fills the room. If you're watching this, Eleanor has made her move to seize control of the foundation, likely using the heritage clause as justification. As the video plays, I watch the board members' expressions transform from confusion to shock to anger. Eleanor remains standing, her perfect facade crumbling with each revelation from beyond the grave as Harold methodically outlines her decades of deception, her secret relationship with Grant, and her attempts to undermine the Foundation's ethical guidelines. When the video ends, the silence is deafening. All eyes turn to Eleanor, who has aged years in the space of minutes, her carefully maintained composure shattered. You don't understand, she finally says, her voice uncharacteristically small. Marcus's treatment could save Daniel's life. I was trying to protect my son. By endangering your granddaughter? I ask quietly. By destroying your daughter's home when she threatened to expose you? Those aren't the actions of a mother protecting her child. They're the actions of someone protecting their own power at any cost. The Foundation's legal counsel, a stern woman who's served since Harold's time, stands. In light of these revelations, I recommend we postpone any leadership decisions until a full investigation can be conducted. In the meantime, as per the bylaws, leadership remains with Daniel Chen or his designated proxy. All eyes turn to me. I take a deep breath, drawing strength from Sophie's presence. Daniel has asked me to represent him until he's released from the hospital. Our first action will be a full audit of all Foundation activities and associations, particularly any connection to Grant Pharmaceuticals. Eleanor makes one last desperate attempt. You can't do this. You're not a Chen by blood. The bylaws specifically state. The bylaws state that leadership must remain within the Chen family. The legal counsel interrupts. As Daniel Chen's wife and the mother of his child, Olivia qualifies under Section 5, Paragraph 3, the same provision that allowed you to serve alongside Harold all these years, Eleanor. As security is called to escort Eleanor from the building, I feel no triumph, only a profound sadness for what could have been. For the grandmother Sophie will never really know, for the mother Daniel deserved but never had. My phone buzzes with a text from Rachel at the hospital. Daniel's tests are back. Grant wasn't lying about the genetic condition. We need to talk. I look down at Sophie, peacefully oblivious to the struggles swirling around her existence. Eleanor may have gone about it in a monstrous way, but the threat to Daniel, to Sophie, may be very real. And now, with Eleanor and Grant facing criminal charges, the knowledge of how to combat that threat could be lost. As I prepare to address the board about our path forward, I realize the battle isn't over. In some ways, it's just beginning. But this time, we'll face it honestly, ethically, and together, as a true family would. The Chen family legacy isn't in blood or DNA or genetic markers. It's in the values Harold lived by, the ones Daniel embodies, and the ones I will teach Sophie, no matter what challenges lie ahead. The hospital corridor feels endless as I walk toward Daniel's room, the test results clutched in my hand like a grenade with the pin half pulled. 3 days have passed since the board meeting where Eleanor's schemes were exposed. 3 days of police investigations, media speculation, and medical tests that have confirmed our worst fears. Daniel sits propped up in his hospital bed, his laptop open as he video conferences with the Foundation's executive team. Even injured, even processing the shattering revelation about his biological parentage, he remains focused on protecting Harold Chen's legacy. He glances up as I enter, his face brightening despite the dark circles under his eyes. We'll continue this tomorrow, he tells the screen before ending the call. Did you get Sophie settled with Rachel? I nod, taking the chair beside his bed. She's fine. More interested in Rachel's cat than anything else. I hesitate, the manila folder heavy in my hands. Dr. Patel sent over your comprehensive test results. Something in my tone must give me away, because Daniel's expression shifts, the hopeful smile fading. It's true, isn't it, what Grant said about the genetic condition? The clinical name stares up at me from the file. Hereditary cardiotrophic myopathy, Chen-Grant variant. An extremely rare genetic disorder affecting heart muscle development, leading to progressive cardiac failure beginning in the 4th or 5th decade of life. First documented in Marcus Grant's father, then Grant himself, now confirmed in Daniel. Yes, I say softly, opening the folder so he can see the results himself. It's called HCM, Chen-Grant variant. Extremely rare, so rare it's named partly after your family. It causes progressive heart failure, typically beginning around age 40 to 45. Daniel takes the file, his hands steady as he scans the medical terminology. And Sophie? The question I've been dreading. Dr. Patel says there's a 50% chance she's inherited it. We can test, but I swallow hard. She recommends waiting until Sophie is older, since there are no interventions needed in childhood. Daniel closes the file, his expression unreadable. So Grant was telling the truth. His Project Revival treatment might be the only hope for a cure. A highly experimental, ethically questionable treatment, I remind him. One that would use our daughter as a genetic resource. I know, Daniel says quietly. But if it could save her from going through this eventually. He gestures to himself, to the heart monitors and IV lines. Though his current hospitalization is for the injuries from the explosion, the specter of future cardiac failure hangs over us like a shadow. A knock at the door interrupts us. Gregory Thomas, the family lawyer, enters with his perpetual look of grave concern magnified. Mr. and Mrs. Chen, thank you for seeing me on such short notice. What's happened? I ask, noting the thick folder under his arm. Has there been a development with Eleanor's case? Thomas sighs heavily, taking the visitor's chair I vacate. For him. Several developments, I'm afraid, none of them good. Eleanor has been released on bail, with Marcus Grant providing the funds. She's out? Daniel sits up straighter, wincing at the movement. After what she did to Victoria? To me? The explosion investigation is ongoing, Thomas explains. Without direct evidence linking her to the planning, the charges were insufficient to hold her. He opens his folder. But that's not why I'm here. Eleanor has filed an emergency petition regarding Sophie. My blood runs cold. What kind of petition? Thomas slides a document across the bed tray. She's seeking emergency temporary guardianship. On medical grounds, claiming Sophie has an undiagnosed genetic condition requiring immediate specialized treatment that you are both refusing to provide. I scan the legal language in disbelief. This is absurd. She can't possibly. She has an alleged medical necessity statement from Dr. Andrew Fielding, Thomas continues grimly. And given her standing as Sophie's grandmother, the court has granted an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning. Daniel's heart monitor betrays his spike in stress with quickened beeps. She's still trying to get access to Sophie for Project Revival, even after everything that's happened. How is this possible? I demand, fighting to keep my voice steady. Eleanor falsified DNA tests, conspired with Grant, was implicated in an explosion that injured her own children, and a judge is still giving her petition consideration. Thomas removes his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You have to understand the complexity here. Dr. Fielding is a respected geneticist, despite his association with Grant. His statement claims that without immediate intervention using the experimental protocol he's developed, Sophie faces potential developmental complications from the genetic condition. That's a lie, I say flatly. Dr. Patel confirmed there are no childhood interventions needed for HCM. And we'll present that at the hearing, Thomas assures me. But Eleanor has another argument that's unfortunately gained traction with the judge. He pauses, clearly uncomfortable. She's claiming that given Daniel's medical condition and uncertain prognosis, and your emotional state following recent events, neither of you is currently fit to make medical decisions for Sophie. The walls seem to close in. She's trying to take our daughter, again. Not permanently, Thomas qualifies. The petition is for temporary guardianship during a medical emergency that she and Dr. Fielding have essentially manufactured. But, if granted, it would give her legal authority to consent to Fielding's treatments for Sophie. Daniel reaches for my hand, his grip surprisingly strong. We'll fight this. The board knows the truth now. The foundation will back us. Thomas shifts uncomfortably. That's the other matter I needed to discuss. Eleanor may have been removed from her position, but she still has allies on the board. 3 members have called for a special review of the Foundation's leadership, citing concerns about Daniel's health and your limited experience with Foundation management, Olivia. They're trying to use Daniel's condition to push us both out, I realize, the pieces clicking into place. Create enough doubt about our capacity to lead, then step into the vacuum. Precisely, Thomas confirms. And with the publicity surrounding Eleanor's arrest and the revelations about Marcus Grant's connection to the family, donor confidence is wavering. Several major supporters have placed their commitments on hold. Daniel's expression hardens. They're using my diagnosis as a weapon against us, just like Mother always planned. There's more, Thomas says, producing another document. Grant Pharmaceuticals has filed an emergency application with the FDA for compassionate use approval for Project Revival, citing Daniel's condition as justification. They're arguing that since the condition is so rare, and Daniel is a perfect candidate, with a familial genetic match in Sophie, standard clinical trial procedures should be bypassed. The coordinated nature of the attack leaves me breathless. Even with Eleanor's initial plans exposed, even with the truth about Daniel's parentage in the open, they're still finding ways to manipulate the system, to use medical and legal channels, to get what they want, access to Sophie. What are our options? Daniel asks, his voice steady despite the bombshell Thomas has just dropped. Thomas outlines the legal strategies, expert medical testimony from Dr. Patel, character witnesses from the Foundation, evidence of Eleanor's past deceptions. But beneath his professional confidence, I sense reservation, uncertainty. After Thomas leaves, promising to prepare for tomorrow's hearing, Daniel and I sit in heavy silence. Outside the window, Portland lies under a fresh blanket of snow, the world continuing its peaceful winter rhythm unaware of our private nightmare. They're never going to stop, I finally say. Even if we win tomorrow, they'll find another angle. Another legal maneuver, another medical justification. Daniel's expression is grim. Not as long as they need Sophie for the treatment. Not as long as I have this condition that only their experimental protocol might cure. The unfairness of it all crashes over me in waves. Daniel, learning his entire identity, was built on Eleanor's lies. Sophie, targeted before she can even walk because of genetic material she happens to carry. Our family, under siege from the very people who should protect it. Maybe, Daniel says slowly, we should consider their treatment. I stare at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. Not on their terms, he clarifies quickly. But the science behind Project Revival, what if there's merit to it? What if, with proper oversight and ethical guidelines, it could actually work? Not just for me, but for Sophie someday, if she inherited the condition. You want to collaborate? With the people trying to take our daughter away. I can't keep the incredulity from my voice. Daniel winces. I want to find a solution that keeps our family safe and addresses the very real medical condition that could shorten my life, that could affect Sophie eventually. If we work with legitimate researchers, find an ethical way to develop a treatment. His words trail off as his heart monitor suddenly emits a shrill alarm. His face contorts in pain, hand clutching at his chest as medical staff rush into the room. I'm pushed aside, helpless, as nurses call out medical jargon and a doctor barks orders. Through gaps in the circle of medical professionals, I see Daniel's face, pale and frightened, his eyes finding mine before they administer something that makes his eyelids droop. What's happening? I demand, my voice barely audible over the chaos. A nurse guides me firmly toward the door. Cardiac event. We need to stabilize him. But the HCM, it shouldn't be causing symptoms yet, I protest. Dr. Patel said, this could be stress-induced, the nurse explains, professional but kind, or related to his injuries from the explosion. We won't know until we run tests. Please wait outside. The hallway closes around me, sterile and cold. I slide down the wall until I'm sitting on the floor, trying to process what just happened. Daniel was fine, talking, planning, holding my hand, and then suddenly he wasn't. The condition that wasn't supposed to affect him for years suddenly seems very real, very present. My phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. News vans outside my apartment building. Someone leaked Sophie's location to the press. We need to move her. Before I can respond, another message appears, this one from an unknown number. Perhaps. Now you understand the urgency. The treatment window is closing for Daniel. For Sophie's sake, reconsider our offer. MG. Cold fury replaces my fear. They're watching us, monitoring Daniel's condition, using Rachel's apartment to get to Sophie. And now they're leveraging Daniel's health crisis to pressure me into cooperation. A doctor emerges from Daniel's room, her face grave. Mrs. Chen? Your husband is stabilized, but we've detected concerning irregularities in his cardiac function. We need to run more comprehensive tests, possibly transfer him to our advanced cardiac care unit. Is this related to the HCM diagnosis? I ask, dreading the answer. She hesitates. It's unusual to see symptoms this acute at his age, even with that condition. We're investigating whether there might be other factors involved. Other factors. The words echo in my mind as she continues explaining the tests they'll run, the specialists they're consulting. Other factors like the explosion he survived just days ago. The explosion that Eleanor is connected to but not yet charged with planning. I think of Grant's text, the timing too perfect to be coincidence. The sudden cardiac event just as we were, discussing options to fight Eleanor's petition. The news vans mysteriously appearing at Rachel's building. With cold clarity, I realize we're being manipulated on every front. Medical, legal, personal. Daniel's condition may be real, but the sudden escalation feels engineered, designed to force our compliance at the exact moment we need to be strongest for the custody hearing. After ensuring Daniel is stable, I make my way to the hospital chapel, needing a moment of privacy and quiet to think clearly. The small room is empty, lit only by a few electric candles that cast dancing shadows on the walls. I sit in the back row, head in my hands, trying to formulate a plan when everything feels like it's crumbling around me. My phone buzzes again, another text from the unknown number. The custody hearing is merely a formality. With Daniel's condition suddenly worsening, the judge will have no choice but to grant temporary guardianship to a healthy family member. Unless, of course, you're ready to discuss reasonable terms. They're so confident, so certain of their victory. And looking at the pieces on the board, I understand why. Daniel hospitalized with a cardiac condition that's mysteriously accelerating. Sophie's location compromised. The foundation board wavering. The court already sympathetic to Eleanor's petition. Even with everything we know about their schemes, they still hold all the leverage. Except they don't know about the last contingency Harold Chen put in place. The final safeguard he created before his death, intended precisely for a moment like this when all other options seemed exhausted. I reach into my bag, past Harold's flash drive to a smaller, older thumb drive I haven't yet mentioned to anyone. Not to Jason, not to Rachel, not even to Daniel. Harold gave it to me on his deathbed, making me promise to use it only in the direst circumstances, only when Sophie's future was truly at risk. When all seems lost, he'd whispered, his voice weak but urgent. Remember that sometimes the most powerful move in chess is the one your opponent never sees coming. I hadn't understood then. In the chaos of his death, Eleanor's hostility, and the joy of Sophie's birth, I'd almost forgotten his cryptic instruction. But now, sitting in this quiet chapel with Daniel fighting for stability down the hall and Sophie's future hanging in the balance, I finally comprehend what Harold meant. The drive contains information that could destroy Marcus Grant completely, evidence of early, failed versions of Project Revival tested illegally on unwitting patients at overseas clinics, patients who suffered catastrophic side effects, patients whose families were silenced with non-disclosure agreements and substantial settlements. Information that, if released, would not only end Grant's career and company, but likely result in criminal charges far more serious than the ones he currently faces. Harold had collected this evidence years ago but never used it, hoping Grant would abandon his unethical research or at least conduct it through proper channels. He'd held it as a last resort, a nuclear option too devastating to deploy except in the most extreme circumstances. I turned the small drive over in my hands, weighing not just the plastic and metal, but the moral implications of what I'm considering. Using this information means destroying not just Grant and Eleanor, but potentially any legitimate benefits that might eventually come from Project Revival. It means choosing Sophie's immediate safety over the treatment that might someday save her or Daniel from this genetic condition. As I wrestle with the decision, my phone rings. Rachel. "Liv, we've got a problem," she says without preamble. "A woman claiming to be from Child Protective Services just tried to take Sophie. Said there was an emergency court order related to a medical necessity." My blood runs cold. What happened? "Jason was here," Rachel continues. "He recognized the documents were fake, inconsistencies in the formatting. They left when he started recording, but they'll be back, probably with real officers next time." "You need to move now," I tell her, already on my feet. "Jason's cousin owns that cabin on Mount Hood, right? The one that's off-grid. You want us to take Sophie to a cabin in the mountains, in this weather?" "Just until after the hearing tomorrow," I explain, walking quickly toward the hospital. "Yeah, I can't risk them getting to her before then. The cabin is the one place they won't think to look." After arranging the details with Rachel, I return to Daniel's room. He's awake now, groggy but alert, tubes and wires connecting him to even more machines than before. "Liv," he murmurs as I approach the bed. "What's happening?" I take his hand, choosing my words carefully. "Eleanor is making her move. They tried to take Sophie using fake CPS documents. Rachel and Jason are moving her somewhere safe until after the hearing." Alarm flashes across his face. "They wouldn't?" "They would," I interrupt gently. "Daniel, I think." I hesitate, uncertain how to voice my suspicion. "I think your condition is being deliberately aggravated somehow." His brow furrows. "What do you mean?" "Your symptoms accelerated right when we were discussing fighting Eleanor's petition. Grant texted me immediately afterward, as if he knew exactly what was happening. And now they're trying to take Sophie while you're incapacitated." Daniel's expression shifts from confusion to anger. "You think they're somehow interfering with my treatment, causing these symptoms?" "I don't know how," I admit. "But the timing is too perfect. They need you compromised for tomorrow's hearing. They need me desperate enough to consider their offer." He squeezes my hand. "What are you going to do?" I look into his eyes, the same eyes that drew me to him years ago, now clouded with medication and worry. "What I have to protect our family." The night passes in a blur of phone calls and preparations. Gregory Thomas arranges for additional security at the hearing. Jason confirms that Sophie, Rachel, and he have reached the cabin safely. Dr. Patel sends over expert testimony countering Dr. Fielding's claims about Sophie's supposed medical emergency. Through it all, I keep Harold's final contingency close, still undecided about whether to use it. The nuclear option. The move that might save Sophie but destroy any chance of a treatment for the condition threatening Daniel and possibly our daughter. Morning arrives with fresh snow and news that Daniel has been moved to intensive care following another cardiac episode during the night. The doctors are baffled by the rapid progression of symptoms usually associated with much later stages of HCM. As I prepare to leave for the courthouse, a nurse pulls me aside. "Mrs. Chen, there's something you should know." She glances around nervously before continuing. "Last night, after you left, a specialist I didn't recognize examined your husband. He administered something through the IV. When I questioned him, he showed me credentials, but something felt off. My suspicions crystallize into certainty." "Did you report this?" She nods. "I took samples from the IV line and had them sent to the lab. Results should be back this morning. She presses a card into my hand. Call me when you can, if something inappropriate was administered. I thank her and hurry toward the courthouse, pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. They're not just manipulating the legal system, they're actively accelerating Daniel's condition to ensure the custody petition succeeds, to make me desperate enough to accept their terms. The courthouse looms before me, its stone steps already crowded with reporters who somehow got wind of the high-profile custody battle. I spot Eleanor near the entrance, immaculately dressed as always, flanked by lawyers and Dr. Fielding, whose presence confirms my worst fears about their intentions for Sophie. Gregory Thomas meets me at a side entrance, guiding me through security. We've filed motions to dismiss based on Eleanor's criminal investigation and the conflict of interest with Dr. Fielding, but the judge seems inclined to hear the petition on its merits given the alleged medical urgency. Daniel's condition has worsened overnight, I tell him, updating him on the nurse's suspicions. I believe they're deliberately accelerating his symptoms to strengthen their case. Thomas looks shocked. That would be attempted murder. Add it to the list, I say grimly. What happens if we lose today? His expression turns grave. The temporary guardianship would grant Eleanor medical decision-making power for Sophie, specifically related to the genetic treatments Dr. Fielding is proposing. You would maintain physical custody, but all treatment decisions would be hers for the duration of the order, initially 30 days, with options to extend if she can demonstrate ongoing medical necessity. Enough time for them to begin harvesting Sophie's genetic material for Project Revival. Enough time to establish a precedent for Eleanor's control over my daughter's medical care. And if Eleanor's criminal case advances? If she's charged with orchestrating the explosion at Victoria's house? Criminal charges would certainly impact the guardianship petition, Thomas acknowledges. But the process could take months, and, in the meantime, the temporary order would remain in effect unless we successfully petition for its removal. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. The wooden benches polished by years of anxious families awaiting decisions that would alter their lives. I take my place at the respondent's table, acutely aware of Sophie's absence beside me, of Daniel's empty chair. The proceedings begin with Eleanor's attorney presenting her petition, a masterfully crafted narrative of medical urgency, parental incapacity, and a grandmother's desperate concern for her grandchild's welfare. Dr. Fielding takes the stand, his credentials impressive as he describes the Chen grant variant of HCM in terms designed to provoke maximum judicial concern. Without immediate intervention using the protocol we've developed, he testifies, Sophie Chen faces a 50% risk of developing symptoms as early as adolescence. Unlike standard HCM, the Chen grant variant has shown accelerated progression when left untreated, as evidenced by Daniel Chen's current critical condition. I watch the judge's expression shift from professional neutrality to concern. Eleanor's strategy is working.
Ilagin insies fihu butchuriated Daniels is a carti cases cage crites litandet. Ishimin in the consisto de chihis pinturingfes gregory temporo presenensis petitals testosterone.
Challenging Fielding's claims about immediate risk to Sophie and questioning the ethics of the proposed treatments. But without Sophie present for examination, without Daniel to testify about his own experience with the condition, our arguments feel abstract compared to the concrete emergency Eleanor's team has constructed. As the morning progresses, my phone buzzes with an update from the hospital. Daniel has been moved to critical care, his condition deteriorating further. The nurse has confirmed that unauthorized medication was administered, a compound designed to stress cardiac function. The Yai hospital is investigating, but the damage is done. Daniel is fighting for his life while I sit in this courtroom fighting for our daughter. When the judge calls a brief recess before rendering her decision, I slip outside to the courthouse steps, needing air, space to think. The morning's revelations have left me reeling. They've poisoned Daniel. Actually poisoned him to advance their case. The depths of their desperation, of their willingness to destroy lives for Project Revival, are finally clear. A familiar figure approaches, elegantly dressed despite the snow. Marcus Grant himself, looking every inch the concerned grandfather rather than the mastermind of this nightmare. "Mrs. Chen," he says quietly, stopping a respectful distance away. "May I have a moment?" "To threaten me further?" I ask, too exhausted for pretense. "To remind me how you're systematically destroying my family to get what you want." He has the audacity to look wounded. "I had nothing to do with Daniel's current condition. That was Eleanor's initiative, not mine." "But you're happy to benefit from it," I counter, "to use his crisis to strengthen your case for access to Sophie." Grant sighs, suddenly looking older, more vulnerable. "You still don't understand. Project Revival isn't just about profit or scientific recognition. It's about survival." He pulls back his sleeve, revealing a medical alert bracelet. "My condition has advanced beyond conventional treatments. The same condition Daniel has. The same one Sophie might develop." "So you're willing to sacrifice my husband and take my daughter to save yourself?" The coldness of it still shocks me. "To save all of us," he corrects, "including Daniel, including Sophie if she inherited the condition. The treatment requires genetic material from 3 generations, yes, but the benefits would extend to all 3 as well." His expression softens. "I'm not asking for custody of Sophie. I'm asking for collaboration, legitimate, supervised access to develop a treatment under proper protocols. While Daniel lies poisoned in a hospital bed? While Eleanor tries to legally separate me from my daughter?" I shake my head in disbelief. "Even now, you're trying to manipulate me." "I'm trying to find a solution before it's too late," Grant insists. "For any of us. Daniel's condition, even without interference, would progress within years. Mine is measured in months. And Sophie? Don't," I cut him off. "Don't use my daughter's name again." Grant studies me for a long moment. "You have something Harold left you. I can see it in your confidence, despite everything arrayed against you today." I say nothing, but my hand instinctively touches my bag where the small thumb drive rests. "Whatever it is," Grant continues, "consider carefully before using it. Destroying me, destroying Project Revival, won't save Daniel, won't protect Sophie from the condition she might have inherited." He turns to go, then pauses. "One last thing. The judge will almost certainly grant Eleanor's petition today. The medical evidence is too compelling, Daniel's condition too dire. But I can speak to Eleanor, arrange for a different approach. Supervised treatments, joint decision-making, transparency in the process." "In exchange for what?" I ask, already knowing the answer. "Whatever Harold gave you," Grant says simply. "Whatever insurance policy he left that you're considering deploying against me." The courthouse doors open behind us, Gregory Thomas signaling that the recess is ending. I have minutes to decide, use Harold's nuclear option and potentially destroy any hope of a treatment for Daniel and Sophie, or find some compromise with the very people who have systematically dismantled my family. As I turn to re-enter the courthouse, my phone buzzes with a text from the hospital. "Toxicology confirmed foreign substance. Security footage shows Eleanor entering patient room during shift change. Police notified." Nurse Chen. Nurse Chen. The name stops me in my tracks. I look up at the sender's details. Wei Chen, RN. The same Wei who helped me access Harold's study. The same loyal family retainer who has served the Chens for decades. And suddenly, I understand Harold's final move. His ultimate contingency wasn't just the evidence against Grant. It was placing people he trusted in positions to protect his son, his daughter-in-law, his granddaughter when Eleanor's true nature finally revealed itself. With renewed purpose, I re-enter the courtroom, the path forward finally clear. Sometimes winning doesn't mean destroying your opponent. Sometimes it means changing the game entirely. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Winters presiding. The courtroom falls silent as the judge returns, her expression unreadable as she takes her seat and arranges her papers. I stand straight, drawing strength from the small flash drive in my pocket and the plan now crystallizing in my mind. After reviewing the evidence presented today, Judge Winters begins. I find sufficient cause for concern regarding Sophie Chen's medical needs and the current capacity of her parents to make appropriate healthcare decisions during this difficult time. Eleanor's face betrays the slightest hint of satisfaction, quickly masked by a performance of solemn concern. Dr. Fielding nods gravely beside her, already making notes, no doubt planning the first procedures for Sophie's treatment. However, the judge continues, and something in her tone makes Eleanor stiffen. There are troubling aspects to this petition that require additional consideration. Mrs. Chen, you've submitted a last-minute filing I'd like to address? Gregory, Thomas and I exchange glances. During the recess, after my encounter with Grant, I'd made a crucial decision, not to use Harold's nuclear option, but to try a different approach entirely. Yes, Your Honor, I say, standing. Given the medical urgency described by Dr. Fielding and the current crisis with my husband's health, I'm requesting the court consider an alternative temporary guardianship arrangement. Eleanor's attorney jumps to his feet. Your Honor, the petitioner has demonstrated her suitability as guardian. Any alternate arrangement would address the concerns raised about Sophie's medical needs while ensuring her safety and well-being, I interrupt. I'm proposing joint medical guardianship between myself and Dr. Amara Patel, Sophie's pediatrician since birth and a specialist in genetic conditions, with all decisions regarding experimental treatments requiring mutual consent. Judge Winters studies me carefully. And why should the court consider this arrangement over granting temporary guardianship to the child's grandmother? This is the moment, the pivot that could change everything. I take a deep breath. Because Eleanor Chen is currently under investigation for deliberately tampering with Daniel Chen's medical treatment, accelerating his cardiac symptoms to strengthen her case for emergency guardianship. I nod to Thomas, who places a folder before the judge. These toxicology reports from Portland General Hospital confirm unauthorized cardiac-stimulating compounds in my husband's system. Security footage identifies Eleanor Chen entering his room during unauthorized hours. Gasps echo through the courtroom. Eleanor's face drains of color as her attorney frantically whispers in her ear. Furthermore, I continue, we've submitted evidence that Dr. Andrew Fielding has a significant financial conflict of interest through his connection to Grant Pharmaceuticals, which stands to benefit from using Sophie as a research subject. Judge Winters examines the documents, her expression darkening. These are serious allegations, Mrs. Chen. If substantiated, they're preposterous, Eleanor interrupts, her composure cracking. Daniel is my son. I would never. Mrs. Chen, the judge warns, you'll have an opportunity to respond. I press my advantage. Your Honor, we're not opposing treatment for Sophie if it becomes medically necessary. We're asking for protection from those who would use her condition as a pretext for exploitation. Dr. Patel has no financial interest in Sophie's treatment and would serve as an impartial medical authority, ensuring all decisions are made in her best interest alone. The judge considers this for a long moment. I'm inclined to hear from Dr. Patel before making any determination. Is she available to testify? She is, Your Honor, Thomas confirms. She's waiting outside. As court officers go to fetch Dr. Patel, Eleanor leans toward her attorney, her whispers growing increasingly agitated. Dr. Fielding looks distinctly uncomfortable, eyes darting toward the exits. Dr. Patel enters, her calm professional demeanor a stark contrast to the tension filling the courtroom. Under oath, she explains Sophie's actual medical status, the true progression timeline for the Chen Grant HCM variant, and the ethical concerns with Project Revival's approach to treatment. In my professional opinion, she concludes, there is no medical emergency requiring immediate intervention for Sophie. While genetic testing may confirm whether she carries the HCM marker, any treatment would be preventative and years away. The protocols proposed by Dr. Fielding are experimental, insufficiently tested, and potentially harmful. Judge Winters nods thoughtfully. And if appointed as joint medical guardian, how would you approach Sophie's care? I would recommend comprehensive genetic counseling, routine cardiac monitoring, and exploring established treatments for HCM, Dr. Patel explains. I would also facilitate review of Project Revival's protocols by independent ethics boards to determine if any aspects might be safely adapted for Sophie's future benefit, should she need treatment. The judge turns to Eleanor. Mrs. Chen, would you like to respond to the allegations regarding Daniel Chen's medical condition? Eleanor straightens, composure partially restored. These accusations are a desperate attempt to distract from Olivia's inadequacy as a mother. Daniel's condition is progressing naturally, if tragically. I've only ever acted out of concern for my son and granddaughter. Then you won't object to a police investigation of the hospital security footage? I challenge. Before Eleanor can respond, the courtroom doors burst open. A police officer enters, followed by, impossibly, Daniel himself, pale and unsteady, but undeniably present, supported by Nurse Wei. Your Honor, Daniel says, his voice weak but determined. I request permission to address the court regarding my mother's petition. Judge Winters appears momentarily stunned before recovering her professional demeanor. Mr. Chen, given your medical condition, I'm surprised to see you here. My condition improved dramatically once hospital security began monitoring my room and my medication, Daniel explains, moving slowly to join me at our table. The artificial acceleration of my symptoms stopped when my mother lost access to my treatment. Eleanor's facade finally cracks completely. Daniel, you need to be in the hospital. Your heart is damaged, yes, he acknowledges grimly. But not as catastrophically as you and Dr. Fielding tried to make it appear. He turns to the judge. Your Honor, I have a right to speak about my daughter's welfare and my mother's petition. Judge Winters nods. Proceed, Mr. Chen. Daniel straightens as much as his weakened state allows. The Chen Grant variant of HCM is real. I have it. Sophie may have it. But it doesn't justify what my mother and Marcus Grant have attempted to do. His voice strengthens with conviction. They deliberately worsened my condition to create a false emergency. They fabricated medical necessity to gain control of my daughter for their experimental treatment. And they've done it all without regard for Sophie's well-being, only for their research and Grant's survival. The courtroom is utterly silent as Daniel continues. I support my wife's proposal for joint guardianship with Dr. Patel. Not because we're incapable of making decisions for Sophie, but because we want transparent, ethical oversight of any treatment she might need. Something my mother has proven incapable of providing. Eleanor rises, abandoning all pretense of decorum. You're making a terrible mistake. Project Revival is your only hope. Sophie's only hope. Without it, we'll explore legitimate medical options, Daniel interrupts. With proper research, ethical protocols, and Sophie's well-being as the only priority. Judge Winters observes the exchange with growing clarity. I've heard enough. She shuffles her papers decisively. Mrs. Eleanor Chen, your petition for emergency guardianship is denied. Instead, I'm granting temporary joint medical guardianship to Olivia Chen and Dr. Amara Patel for a period of 60 days, during which a comprehensive evaluation of Sophie's medical needs will be conducted by an independent panel of specialists. She looks directly at Eleanor. Furthermore, I'm referring the evidence of medical tampering to the district attorney's office for immediate investigation. Court officers will detain Mrs. Eleanor Chen pending that review. As court officers approach Eleanor, the composed, matriarch I've known for years dissolves entirely. "You don't understand what you're doing," she shouts, her voice shrill with desperation. "The treatment is almost perfected. Marcus needs just a few more samples." "Mrs. Chen," the judge interrupts. Sharply, "I advise you to remain silent until you've consulted with your attorney. Anything you say may be used in subsequent criminal proceedings." Eleanor falls silent, but her eyes, when they meet mine, are filled with a mixture of hatred and something that might, in another person, resemble fear. As the officers lead her away, I feel no triumph, only a profound sadness for what might have been. For the grandmother Sophie could have had. For the mother Daniel deserved. Daniel squeezes my hand, his touch grounding me in the present moment. "It's over," he whispers. But we both know it isn't. Not really. The Chen Grant HCM variant remains a very real threat to Daniel's health, to Sophie's future. Without Project Revival, we're back to conventional treatments with limited effectiveness. We've won Sophie's safety today, but the larger battle for her healthy future continues. As we leave the courthouse, reporters clamor for statements, cameras flashing in the winter sunshine. I shield Daniel from the worst of it as Wei helps him toward the waiting car. The crowd parts momentarily, revealing a solitary figure observing from across the street. Marcus Grant, his expression unreadable as our eyes meet briefly before he turns and walks away. One battle ended. Another just beginning. 3 months. Later, spring has transformed Portland into a canvas of green and cherry blossoms. The Chen Family Foundation headquarters hums with purpose as I navigate the familiar corridors, Sophie babbling happily in her stroller. Staff members smile and wave as we pass. The baby who was once the center of a custody battle, now a beloved regular visitor as the foundation moves forward under new leadership. Daniel's office door is open, sunlight streaming through the large, windows illuminating the man himself, deep in conversation with Dr. Amara Patel and, surprisingly, Dr. Andrew Fielding. I pause at the threshold, taking in the scene. Since the courthouse drama, much has changed. Eleanor remains under house arrest, awaiting trial for multiple charges, including medical tampering and conspiracy. Victoria has recovered from her injuries and distanced herself from her mother's schemes, tentatively rebuilding relationships with Daniel and me. The foundation board, after initial wavering, has rallied behind Daniel's vision for ethical medical research. And most unexpectedly, Dr. Fielding, separated from Grant's influence and facing his own legal scrutiny, has begun cooperating with authorities and legitimate medical researchers, sharing what he knows about Project Revival's protocols in exchange for leniency. "Ah, there they are," Daniel says warmly, noticing us at the door. He looks better than he has in months, color returned to his cheeks, though the underlying condition remains a constant concern managed through conventional treatments. "Sorry we're late," I say, wheeling Sophie into the office. "Someone decided her morning nap was optional today." Dr. Patel smiles, bending to Sophie's level. "Hello, little one. Ready for your checkup today?" Sophie responds with a stream of nonsensical syllables, reaching for the stethoscope around Dr. Patel's neck. At 9 months old, she's already showing Daniel's curiosity and determination, and thankfully, none of Eleanor's capacity for manipulation. "We were just discussing the modified protocol," Daniel explains, gesturing to the medical diagrams spread across his desk. "Dr. Fielding believes there may be aspects of Project Revival that can be salvaged and developed ethically." I Fielding. Cautiously. Since his cooperation began, he's provided valuable insights into the Chen Grant HCM variant and potential treatments. But trust comes slowly after everything that's happened. "The original approach was fundamentally flawed," Fielding admits, seeming to read my thoughts. "Not just ethically, but scientifically. Grant's desperation led him to shortcuts that compromised the treatment's viability. With proper research, protocols, and ethical oversight, we might develop something that could help without exploiting anyone. And Sophie's role in this research? I ask, the question that still keeps me awake at night. Dr. Patel answers, her voice gentle but firm. Minimal and entirely observational until she's old enough to give informed consent. The genetic testing confirmed she carries the marker, but as we've discussed, symptoms wouldn't typically appear until adulthood. We have time, Daniel adds, reaching for my hand. Time to develop better treatments, time to explore all options, time to let Sophie grow up without the shadow of medical necessity hanging over her. The Foundation's conference room gradually fills with board members and researchers for the quarterly meeting. This gathering feels different from those of Eleanor's era, less formal, more collaborative, with medical ethics specialists and patient advocates included alongside the financial trustees. Daniel opens the session with an update on the Foundation's restructured research priorities, emphasizing transparency and ethical guidelines. I follow with a presentation on the new patient advocacy program, ensuring those affected by rare genetic conditions have voices in treatment development. And now, Daniel says, I'd like to introduce our special guest, who's joining us virtually from New York. The large screen flickers to life, revealing Marcus Grant, visibly thinner, his once commanding presence diminished by advancing illness, but his mind clearly sharp. The board members murmur in surprise. Grant's cooperation was arranged confidentially after weeks of negotiation. Thank you for this opportunity, Grant begins, his voice steady despite his weakened appearance. I won't waste time with apologies that would be insufficient for my actions. Instead, I want to share what I know about the Chen-Grant HCM variant, its progression, the treatments I've attempted, and the research data collected over decades. The presentation that follows is remarkable, a comprehensive overview of a brilliant scientist's life work, flawed by ethical compromises but valuable nonetheless. Grant explains cellular mechanisms, treatment approaches, research dead ends, and promising directions that legitimate scientists might explore. My time is limited, he concludes simply. The conventional treatments are failing, and without Project Revival's completion, my prognosis is measured in months. But perhaps that's fitting, the price of pursuing scientific advancement without ethical constraints. He looks directly at the camera, and I sense he's speaking specifically to Daniel and me. I hope that by sharing this research openly, some good might come from my mistakes. That Sophie, he hesitates slightly on her name, and others carrying. This genetic burden might someday benefit from treatments developed the right way, with consent and care rather than deception and coercion. After the call ends and the meeting adjourns, Daniel and I find ourselves alone in the conference room, processing the surreal experience of collaborating with the man who'd tried to destroy our family just months earlier. Do you think he's sincere? I ask, gathering my notes. Daniel considers the question carefully. About wanting to help now? Yes, I think so. When facing your own mortality, priorities often clarify. He sighs, running a hand through his hair. Though I doubt he'd have reached this enlightenment without Harold's evidence hanging over him. The flash drive, Harold's nuclear option that I'd chosen not to deploy publicly, but had shown to Grant privately after the court hearing. The evidence had been sufficient to secure his cooperation without destroying potentially valuable research that might someday help Daniel and Sophie. Speaking of Harold, I say, Wei found something else in the study, something he thinks you should see. That evening, after putting Sophie to bed, we sit together in our living room examining the latest discovery, a handwritten journal Harold kept during his final years, documenting his suspicions about Eleanor, his investigation into Grant's research, and most poignantly, his hopes for Daniel and Sophie's future. The last entry, dated just days before his death, catches my breath. I've made arrangements to protect them from Eleanor's ambition and Grant's desperation. The evidence is in place, the contingencies arranged, but my greatest hope lies not in these precautions but in Olivia herself, in her strength, her clarity, her unwavering commitment to family. Daniel chose better than he knows. When the time comes, she will do what must be done, not from a place of vengeance, but from love. And in doing so, she may save not just Sophie, but all of them, perhaps even Eleanor from herself, though I fear that redemption may lie beyond reach. Daniel's eyes shine with unshed tears as he reads his father's words. He knew. All along, he knew what might happen, and he trusted you to navigate it. Us, I correct gently. He trusted us. Family, protecting family, the way it should be. We sit in comfortable silence, the journal between us, a bridge connecting past to future. Outside our window, Portland twinkles beneath a clear spring sky, the world continuing its eternal cycle of renewal. The Chen Family Foundation continues its work, now focused on ethical genetic research and patient advocacy. Daniel manages his condition with conventional treatments while supporting research into better options, not just for himself and Sophie, but for others affected by rare genetic disorders. The legal proceedings against Eleanor and Grant continue their slow progress through the system, justice methodical but relentless. And Sophie, our beautiful, perfect Sophie, grows and thrives, oblivious to the storm that once swirled around her tiny existence. Someday she'll learn the truth about her grandmother, about Marcus Grant, about the genetic legacy she carries. But she'll learn it from us, with honesty and compassion, not manipulation and fear. 1 year after the fateful Christmas dinner when Eleanor first made her accusation, we gather for a very different holiday celebration. Our home fills with those who stood by us through the crisis: Rachel and Jason, Dr. Patel and her family, Wei and other loyal staff members who protected Daniel when he was most vulnerable. Victoria arrives last, hesitant but welcomed as she works to define a relationship with us independent of Eleanor's influence. She brings a small gift for Sophie, a family photo restored and reframed, Harold holding infant Daniel, joy evident in his expression. I found it among Father's things, she explains. I thought Sophie should have it, a reminder of the grandfather who did everything to protect her, even before she was born. As we settle around the dinner table, Sophie babbling happily in her high chair, I look at the faces surrounding us. The family we've chosen, the bonds forged through crisis and strengthened by shared purpose. Not perfect, certainly not unmarked by the traumas we've endured, but genuine in a way Eleanor's carefully orchestrated family gatherings never were. Daniel raises his glass. To family, he says simply. Not defined by blood or DNA tests, but by love and choice and standing together when it matters most. To family, we echo, glasses clinking in the warm light. Later, after our guests have departed and Sophie sleeps peacefully in her crib, Daniel and I stand by her doorway, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. What do you think she'll remember of all this? Daniel wonders softly. Nothing of the conflict, I reply. But hopefully, everything about the love that surrounded her, that fought for her, that put her well-being above all else. He puts his arm around me, and we stand there in comfortable silence, two people transformed by crisis into stronger, wiser versions of ourselves. The road ahead remains uncertain. Daniel's health, Sophie's future, the ongoing legal battles. But we face it together, eyes open, hearts aligned. Some Christmas mornings bring unexpected gifts. Some DNA tests reveal truths more profound than genetic markers. And sometimes, when a mother-in-law makes an accusation designed to destroy, she unwittingly creates an opportunity for something stronger to emerge from the ashes of what burns away. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.